In the Farbrengen of Tafshin Chafei of 1965 from Purim that we're learning right now, the Rabbi began talking about a teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, about why it says Yehudim with two Yuds in the Megillah, and comparing it to the name Yisrael in the Torah. The Jewish people call Yisrael in the Torah, and the Megillah, they're called Yehudim, and how the word Yehudim in the Megillah is spelled with two Yuds, which we said, Baal Shem Tov says that the two Yuds are connected to the 10 powers of the godly soul and 10 powers of the animal soul. And the word meaning of Yehudi is about Mesiras Nefesh. That's what the Baal Shem Tov said. So, the Baal Shem Tov said this in the year Tav Kuf Hey, which is the year the Alter Rebbe was born. And the Baal Shem Tov concluded, he said, now the world is in a state of Ibur. The world in a state of pregnancy. That year, Tav Kuf Hey was a Ibur year. There was two others. And the word Ibur also means pregnancy. So Baal Shem Tov said, now the world's in a state of pregnancy. So, what did the Baal Shem Tov mean? So that year, the Alter Rebbe's neshama, the new neshama of the Alter Rebbe, was in a state of pregnancy, because the Alter was born at the end of that year, on the 18th of El. So on the Purim of that year, the Alter Rebbe's neshama was in pregnancy, and that's what the Baal Shem Tov meant, as our Rabbi explained. Although those who heard the Baal Shem Tov at that time didn't know what he was talking about, they thought that there's such a concept of a pregnant year. Chav Beis. They thought there's such a concept as a pregnant year, and since there's a pregnant year, so therefore the world's in a state of pregnancy. Want to send it to me also?
I see it. What's up?
Send to you. You have Yosef's number?
I think so. What's up?
Yeah.
Yes.
So the world is in a state of pregnancy. What does it mean the world's in a state of pregnancy? So the simple meaning was that they thought it meant was that in a year that has two others, the world, there's something called pregnancy. It does say in Sfarim. You said to me also?
No.
It does say in Sfarim. It does say in the holy books something about a special spiritual remedy about having a baby in a year where there's an extra adar, because the word ibur means pregnancy, but the Baal Shem Tov didn't mean that. Baal Shem Tov meant that because the Alter Rebbe's neshama was being born that year, so right at that moment and that Purim he was in a state of pregnancy, so therefore the world's in a state of pregnancy. That's what Baal Shem Tov said after saying this teaching about the meaning of Yehudi. And then he went on into this concept of pregnancy. The question is, what's the meaning of the yeah, thank you. What's the relationship between the world being in a state of pregnancy and the teaching about the Yehudi and Yehudim? By the way, just someone asked me yesterday. Yesterday was the 30th anniversary, Chonol Tzlan, of the day the Rebbe had a stroke. Not just one stroke, but incredibly, 2 years later, on the same day, on the 27th of Adar, the Rebbe got a second stroke. And someone got an email from some Chabad center about, what's the 27th day of Adar? What happened? Wow.
Thank you. Where were they?
I put it away yesterday. I put it in the box. I thought it was supposed to be with the other old ones.
Oh.
Not always the wrong box.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Chav Beis. Wow.
I forgot the mitzvah.
You do. Okay. Anyway, so the guy was asking me what happened today, and he was expecting, some, major event that touched all of the Jewish people, and I think it's if for us who've more familiar with the Rebbe, and so the idea of the Rebbe having a stroke and affecting all the Jewish people, that's something that we relate to. But someone's not familiar with it, it It sounds foreign, sounds strange. But here the Baal Shem Tov said this statement about the Alter Rebbe. The world in a state of pregnancy, because he was referring to Alter Rebbe's neshama, since his neshama is in a state of pregnancy, therefore the whole world is in a state of pregnancy.
What does it mean his neshama is in a state of pregnancy?
That's what we're going to learn. What does it mean he's in neshama in a state of pregnancy, and what does that have to do with his previous teaching about the meaning of the word Yehudi? Let's go to Eis Yud Zayin Pei Chav Beis. For you, Mekam Kol Sini, we'll understand this by first prefacing the whole idea of pregnancy. Since the neshama is hewn out, is cut out from under the throne of glory of Hashem, and then the neshama needs to descend and go into a body of flesh and blood. The question is asked, how can the neshama jump from one extreme to another extreme, from being under the throne of glory and then going into a body, an animal soul? So it says in holy books, that's why there is a period of pregnancy. It's not that as soon as the neshama descends from heaven, immediately the body is born together with the soul. That's something which is just unusual. That does happen. That happened to Adam. That's something unusual. And even then, even in the state, even for Adam, in other words, I guess, there is also a concept of pregnancy in heaven. By the way, regarding the Alter Rebbe's neshama, it says that in order for neshama to come to this world, any neshama needs to prepare for a year before. A new neshama requires 3 years of preparation. So there certainly was always, in addition to whatever the Alter Rebbe was experiencing by him being in a state of pregnancy physically in this world, there was also a previous period of pregnancy before. I just want to mention, I shared this to you a few months ago, that Rabbi Yoel Khan, he had a friend who, he and his friend were discussing the meaning of the word Nu Neshama. And Rabbi Yoel said that the word Nu Neshama means a new kind of neshama from the future, neshama of a new kind of neshama which hasn't been revealed yet, neshamas which are reserved for the future Erev Mashiach. And his friend disagreed and said a new neshama means a neshama. His friend disagreed and said the word meaning of new neshama is a neshama. I guess I'm being censored. Hold on a second. No, don't worry. Okay. So the meaning of the word nu neshama means a neshama that has never been born before. That's the way people usually translate the word nu neshama. Neshama that was never born before. So they had this discussion, and they decided to ask the Rebbe himself, what's the meaning of the nu neshama of the Alter Rebbe? And the Rebbe answered, "L'may nafka mina." Why is it your business? In other words, why do you have to know? So the Rebbe didn't answer. But years later, in Tafshin Chavav, 1966, the Rebbe delivered the famous talk about the essence of teachings of Chassidus. And that talk he mentioned the concept of Nu Neshama. And that talk he indeed referenced the source that Rabbi Yoel was referring to, that a Nu Neshama means a Neshama from a future era. A Neshama from the era of B'yas Mashiach. Oh, I know what to do. I need to take my phone off of Wi-Fi. Boom. That's going to work good. Okay. So Nu Neshama means, again, a Neshama from the future era of B'yas Mashiach. So the Alter Rebbe's Neshama wasn't just, he was meant to lead the Jewish people. So what's happening to him is something which affects everyone. So what's the meaning of being in a state of pregnancy? So a pregnancy means a preparation state. In general, there isn't a immediate birth when the neshama descends to this world like it was with Adam. Rather, there's a 7-month period like it was with Moshe Rabbeinu. There's a 9-month period like there is with a regular person. There's a 12-month period like there was with Eliyahu Navi. Chassidus says in general that the difference between Moshe and Eliyahu Navi is that Eliyahu Navi's role in the world was to impact the physical, to elevate the physical, and that's why he ascended to heaven with a body. And Moshe Rabbeinu's neshama, his role was more about being transparent to the revelation of Hashem. So since Eliyahu Navi's role was to elevate the physical, That's why there was a longer gestation period. And since Moshe, that's right, is that right word, doctor? Gestation period? And since Moshe Rabbeinu's neshama was meant just to be a transparent to godly revelation, wow, thank you very much. Since his neshama was meant to just be transparent to godly revelation, therefore he didn't need to have a longer, he needed to have a shorter gestation period of 7 months. That is a pulsa iburi. What's a function of pregnancy? That during this time the body develops from its original state, from the whiteness it received from its father and the redness it receives from its mother, and the baby develops from this drop to become 248 limbs and 365 veins. So the neshama also is affected by this gestation period, just like the body develops to become a full body with limbs and veins, so too the neshama develops, and it leaves this pristine state of being in the world of Atzilus, of being pure. And as we say every morning in our davening, begin davening with saying, the neshama you gave me is pure, you created it, you formed it, and you blew it within me. So that prayer reflects the various stages of the neshama as it ascends to a body. It's pure, that refers to the highest world. You created it, the next world, you formed it, the next world, you blew it within me, this world. So just like the body has this gestation period of development, so too the neshama also descends slowly through these worlds during the time of pregnancy. We'll move on. Just like the neshama needs to descend from above to below until it's able to animate a physical body, so too the body has to prepare to receive the spiritual energy from the neshama. The neshama has to prepare and contract its energy to be able to be relevant to the body, and the body has to prepare to be elevated, to absorb the energy of the neshama. Even after the whole period of the neshama's pregnancy, of the neshama's slow descent from world to world until it's more in touch with the physical body, it's still completely spiritual. So, in other words, what I'm getting from this is that although there is discussion in the Gemara about when the neshama enters, when the Yetzer Hara enters, and from conception already there's a connection to the neshama and the body, but just like the body is developing during this whole time, so too the neshama is also being further and further contracted in order to be able to more animate the body. As the body is developing, the neshama is developing also a stronger connection, a more of a limited connect. The neshama is being more and more limited to be connected to the body. So, if that my understanding is correct, so then when we learn in the Gemara, for example, that the Eibishter teaches the neshama, Malach teaches the neshama the whole Torah before coming to the body, so that's what's happened during the time of pregnancy. So it would seem that the kind of things that Malach is teaching the neshama is more and more relevant to its mission in the world. In other words, it's more and more, as the neshama is getting closer and closer to birth, so then the neshama has to be more and more in tune with the physical. So just like the body is developing, the neshama is contracting more and more, and perhaps what the neshama is learning from the Malach is also more relevant to life in this world. That doesn't say that. That's just my conjecture. Anyways, the Ramah explains the meaning of the bracha of Asher Yatzar. In the bracha of Asher Yatzar, in the beginning of the morning blessings, which we say, Hashem heals all flesh and performs wonders. So says the Ramah, what's the wondrous thing, says the Ramah? Throughout the Asher Yatzar, we're thanking Hashem for the whole functioning of the body. What are we concluding with? What specific aspect are we highlighting when we say that God performs wonders? We're talking about, says the Ramah, is that God connects the spiritual with the physical, that God guards our spirit and our body. And shagam la'achar ibur, even after pregnancy, la'achar kamashas chaim be'il mahazeh, and even after living for a couple of years in this world, in b'chol yoyim v'yoyim, yishtzera pokech mafli yasis kasha shamagov. There needs to be every single day a renewed miracle to keep the neshama in the body.
You say a lot of brachas in the morning.
Yeah.
Why by Asher Yotzer?
Why Asher Yotzer? I don't know. Maybe because Asher Yotzer is highlights the most physical bodily functions, and therefore it's
even the highest function, which is the neshama, to the lowest physical.
Despite our very corporal and physical state that we need to go to the bathroom, but still the Eibusher, b'koyach ma'achlasis, with the wondrous power of Hashem, our neshama is connected to that body. I wonder why the Rebbe says every single day, and it's every moment. I mean, if it's a miracle that the neshama is attached to the body, there will need to be a constant force. It could be that, like it says in Shulchan Aruch, that Hashem renews the world every day. Even though the Baal Shem Tov says that the creation happens every moment, but Shulchan Aruch says that we, in our prayers, we highlight Machaj Tuv V'chol Yom Tomas Aveshus. Hashem renews the world every day, because since when the sun rises every day, it looks like the world is being renewed. So therefore, we highlight it every day. So it could be that the Rebbe is referring to the same thing over here. We say the bracha in the morning, although it's happening every moment, but it's highlighted. Like, in other words, all other morning blessings are the same thing. The Malbish Harumim, the clothing that I'm receiving from Hashem, it's also every moment. But it could be that the bracha is said because of the, as it says in Shulchan Aruch, because of the general feeling in the morning you have of renewal. As Rabbi Reber said, that when you wake up in the morning and you feel renewed, there's a double thanks to Eibusher. So it could be that's why the Rebbe says every single day, and that's because I think it should be every moment. Every moment there needs to be a constant force of Hashem to keep the body and soul attached. But
to underscore that,
most
people think of life like a cell. They look at it as like an egg, that you just open from the refrigerator. It is not that way. Things are going on in the cell at catalytic speed, which is almost instantaneous. Otherwise, we wouldn't have life. And it's like pepper inside of one of those thunder blenders. It's faster than that.
Wow. So there is a wondrous power of Hashem, says the Ramah, to connect the soul to the body. How much more so before the body has been prepared to really internalize the energy of the soul, how much more so does it take a wonder of Hashem, a godly power, a divine power, to attach the soul to the body. In other words, the initial attachment of the soul to the body requires a wondrous power of Hashem. Even after you're living for many years, you still need to have a wondrous power of Hashem. Hashem still hasn't lost his spirituality, and therefore it still requires a wondrous power. How much more so in the initial connection of soul with body in conception and gestation does there need to be a wondrous power of Hashem. Next page. Chav Gimel. So when a new neshama had to descend to this world, the soul of the Alter Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe had this special mission to permeate the world with the revelation of the inner dimension of Torah. The Alter Rebbe had to bring the world to receive this light of Hashem. And not just to receive it in a way that it's hovering above it, but in a way of Chabad, in a way of understanding and internalizing it. So therefore, there had to be a pregnant period. And this period of pregnancy involves two things. Number one, the neshama has to go through this gestation period in order to be able to illuminate and animate the world through the inner dimension of Torah, in order that this light should be received internally, in a way that the world should understand it. So neshama has to change, has to be altered to fit into the world. And number two, the world also has to be in a state of pregnancy. The world also has to be developed in order that it should be able to be a vessel to receive this light of the inner dimension of Torah. This helps us understand the following. But first prefacing what we mentioned earlier, the Rabbi mentioned earlier in this Farbrengen, it says in the Megillah, these days are remembered and they happen again. Says the Rabbi. Shakasha Yehud, this is actually from that Arizal. Shakasha Yehud, Yeshav Purim Bepin Shalei. Maskin Purim Chalibe Chol Nafesh Chol Mechum Yedacha. A Jew is sitting on Purim in his corner of the world, and he is remembering Purim with his whole heart, soul, and might. As I bekoich lefil in the nasim. It says in the Megillah, these days are remembered and they happen. Says that Arizal, by remembering it, you cause it to happen. So when you remember the Purim with all your heart, soul, and might, you're able to draw down and cause the revelation of Purim the way it happened the first Purim. Whatever happened the first Purim in the world, you remembering Purim with your heart, soul, and might, you're able to draw that down. Move on. The question, however, is when you know what level you're on, even if you remember with all your heart, soul, and might, can you suddenly become like Mordechai and Esther? Like, your children put on costumes and they I'm Mordechai, I'm Esther, but you're not Mordechai and Esther. So how is it possible that you're going to suddenly become like Mordechai and Esther? Yachem called me Yisrael, not just Mordechai and Esther, but the Jews at that time who fasted for 3 days and nights in order to bring the bracha of Hashem, to cause the salvation. They're fasting for 3 days and nights. And they gathered 22,000 children who also fasted, also cried, also davened. They accomplished what Purim should happen. How are you suddenly going to put on those shoes? Even putting on the shoes of the Jews in the Ukraine, like thinking what they're going through, and like they're mamish living with the real Mesiras Nefesh like it's in the books. So, and that's in our time. Imagine the time of Purim. How are we suddenly supposed to be like them? Nevertheless, Hashem tells us that even in the year 1965, and even in Brooklyn, God gives power to every Jew. Hashem doesn't ask him what you did a moment ago. And by you remembering Purim the way Torah wants, you will accomplish what Esther and Mordechai and all the Jewish people through all their fasting accomplished. You will accomplish this. But how is that possible? So that's a fact. That's what Torah says. This is the truth. The question is, how is this possible? The explanation is, I'll paraphrase the rest from the Hebrew. This is the difference between when you need to start something the first time to when you need to just go on a beaten path. After Mordechai and Esther, and the 600,000 Jews and the 22,000 children, by their fasting for 3 days, etc., after they accepted the Torah with their sacrifice, and they accomplished at that time that the Jewish people should have they accomplished the Jewish people should have light and joy, gladness, and honor. They opened the road, like we find in the Torah a few times. Pasach Eliyahu. Eliyahu began his discourse. Is the simple meaning of those words, but it also means Eliyahu opened up a new channel. So, in a similar way, because Mordechai and Esther already broke through and they penetrated the physical atmosphere of this world, and they brought down this revelation of Purim, so now already there's a paved road for all the Jewish people. And when you travel on a paved road, you don't need to work and make an effort. You do not need effort. All you need to do is go on that road and go in the right direction, not go chas v'shalom the opposite way. So if you're going on the 10 East, doesn't matter what kind of car you have, eventually you're going to get to downtown. Eventually you will get to downtown. If you're going to 10 West, no matter what kind of car you have, you'll never get to downtown.
It's like Lewis and Clark. When they showed people can be done, and they came and did it.
So in a similar way, regarding the Alter Rebbe's neshama, the Alter Rebbe's mission, the Alter Rebbe had a unique mission, and there were many decrees and many wars and imprisonment, as we know from the talks of our Rabbi. But after the Alter Rebbe already paved the road through his sacrifice, because of his sacrifice for Chassidus, it says that in the famous letter of our Rabbi, that it was ruled in the heavenly court that in regards to all matters of Torah mitzvahs, Yad Chasidim al Yena, the hand of the Chassidim will be on the upper hand, meaning the Chassidim will be victorious. There's a long letter of the previous Rebbe, which explains doesn't mean that Chassidim have blue blood or something, and if you're davening with Nusach Siddur, then all of a sudden you're going to be successful in whatever you do. He explains that, I'm oversimplifying it, it's one of the hardest letters of the previous Rebbe. What I understood from it was, the previous Rebbe said that just like it says that those who carried the ark were carried by the ark, in a similar way, if you put your hand out to carry the ark, then you were carried by the ark. In a similar way, those who are doing things altruistically, or meaning of a chassid is someone doing things really for the sake of heaven. So then, if they're in that category, then the heavenly court rules that chassidim will be victorious regarding all matters of Torah and Yiddishkeit. So that's what the Alter Rebbe is. That's what was said in this letter. That the Alter Rebbe accomplished. The Bezdin says this will happen to the chassidim. But the question is, Reb Chaim Peretz, how could a chassid in our time compare himself to the sacrifice of the Alter Rebbe even during the week? How much more so can you compare yourself to the Alter Rebbe when he was actually in prison, practically in a state of danger? But the difference is, once the road has been opened, the road has been paved, so then it's possible. As the Gemara says about Chanina Mendesa, the Gemara says the whole world is sustained, says the Gemara, in the merit of Chanina Mendesa. The word bishvil means the sake of Rabbi Chanina Mendesa, but bishvil also means in the path of Chanina Mendesa. So because Rabbi Chanina Mendesa, he opened a channel for the world to deserve sustenance. So therefore, it's possible. Like a person might say, the Rebbe says, how could you demand that I should go teach chassidus to someone else? I know I haven't finished my job. I haven't been elevated myself. And even me with my great virtues, I'm not ready to learn chassidus. How much more so the other guy who is much lower than me? How can for sure he's not ready to learn chassidus? So how could I do this? How could I teach and how could he learn? So the Rebbe says this question would have been appropriate if you were the first guy to have to do this. But since the road has already been opened and there's a paved road and a good road and a straight road, the way of the king of the world, which already started when the world was in a state of pregnancy, to receive the intervention of Torah, and the new neshama was already in a state of pregnancy. In order to descend to this world, from that moment on, there does need to be a state of pregnancy for a short while, which means don't jump, the Rebbe says, with your lapaches. What's lapaches, Rabbi Yosef? Boots, I think. Your galoshes. Don't jump with your boots into the sukkah, which is a Yiddish expression, which means get ready. Don't jump with your boots in the sukkah. You gotta get ready. You're allowed to wash your hands. You don't have to put your coarseness into the teachings of Chassidus. But on the other hand, the other guy shouldn't suffer until you'll become a tzaddik and you'll be successful to take care of Yetzer Hara. Until then, you're not going to tell the other guy Chassidus. Until then, you're not going to tell him Shulchan Aruch. Until then, you're not going to teach him the written Torah, the oral Torah. The other guy shouldn't suffer because of your coarseness. And there adds that even if you don't understand this, doesn't make a difference. You're a Jew. You're a Yehudi. And then they concluded as a joke, sort of, they smiled. In Eretz Yisrael, at that time, there was a discussion about who was considered a Jew. So in Eretz Yisrael, when they put on a passport, someone's Jewish, they write they're not a Yisrael, they write Yehudi. So what does the word Yehudi mean? This is a connection between the previous concept. That the idea of Yehudi means that someone who denies idolatry and accepts the whole Torah. So although the greatest Avodah Zarah, idolatry, is to say that I'm like the Gentiles, and a person wants that people should know they're Jewish. They want people to think that they're an Ivan, they're a Michael, or they're a Goy. The truth is that if you're born to a Jewish mother, whether you want to or you don't want to, you're a Jew, and automatically you are, in your essence, someone who denies idolatry, you're someone who acknowledges the whole Torah, and it could be Yetzer Hara Taka disturbs you, but you have the ability not to listen to the old foolish king, and you're able to go. So you're able to always summon that, to realize that you have this. The road is there. And then you're able to go to be on this road of security, to bring down light and joy, gladness, and honor of Torah mitzvahs in this physical world, and the world should become a luminous and joyous world. Okay, stop here. The road is paved already. That's the bottom line. We are a Yehudi or a Jew. We have it.
Rabbi, you asked, am I off the internet?